Good evening, everybody. At the outset, I will just say a few words about this program. This is a new program started by Lhakdor Tibetan Works and Archives, which we call as special Buddhist classes. So every month, one of our Geshes will have classes for 5 days. And the purpose of this is, of course, manifold and do not need any explanation, because as His Holiness has always been saying that it is not enough to call oneself as a Buddhist. It is extremely important to know what the Buddha taught, number one. Number two, the whole Tibetan culture, whose essence is primarily Buddhism, is today dying in its own country, in Tibet. Therefore, it becomes very important for all of us to take the responsibility to individually undergo rigorous study, contemplation, and thinking. Thirdly, we live in a scientific world where blind faith has not much room. We need to analyze, scrutinize, and logically find things for ourselves. So that also makes it very important for all of us, whether monk or layman, to understand at least a little bit of the Buddha's teaching. Recently, in fact, quite recently, actually last year in September, when I was attending this interfaith conference organized by His Holiness Dalai Lama, one early morning His Holiness called the Gandhin Triba and 2 other Khembos, and His Holiness also asked me to join them. And during which His Holiness said that the young Tibetans do have very strong faith towards Buddhism, but their knowledge is far from adequate. So therefore he told the Gandhin throne holder and others that you should take the responsibility of organizing various courses of different levels, so the young Tibetans are able to not only gain Buddhist insight and knowledge, but also be able to implement in their daily life and also help enrich their own personal life. So as I was saying, that the purpose is manifold. And then, as all of us know very clearly, that His Holiness repeatedly tells us to, number one, focus on Buddhist ethics. Buddhism in general, of course, then particularly Buddhist ethics, and the Buddhist art of reasoning, the use of logic, finding things through logical reasoning. And it is because of this, in the library, we have started another small program in our regular classes, that from March onwards, in our regular classes, we have introduced 15 minutes meditation every day who come for the classes. And also on every Wednesday, the art of using Buddhist logic will be taught to the students attending the classes. So these are some of the small initiatives we are taking. And I'm saying this not to talk highly about the library, but I'm saying that this is a kind of responsibility that we should all take very sincerely and very faithfully. Then another point is, why am I speaking English today? Because most of the listeners are Tibetans, and I'm personally very much tempted to speak in Tibetan, and I feel very, very comfortable to use the Tibetan terms and so forth, in which I'm much, much more familiar than my broken English. But our 2 Geshes will not be able to teach in English, they will be teaching in Tibetan, so you have opportunity to listen them directly from Tibetan, which will be much more clearer, hopefully, because you are listening to your own language and using the words. Then among the younger generation also, we do have, and all of you understand English very well, and there are also some cases where people sometimes feel that they are able to understand certain things in English easier than in Tibetan. And then we also have a lot of foreigner students who are around here, so to benefit them also, because they came from far off places to get something from our religion or from Dharamsala. So with this in my mind, And very reluctantly, I'm trying to teach in English, or speak in English, or talk in English. Okay? And the text we have chosen is Shirab Nyingbo, the heart of wisdom, which all of you are quite familiar in terms of recitation. I'm sure you have recited this text very much and very often, but unfortunately, as far as the meaning is concerned, it's not at all easy. And what I'm going to explain will be far from, touching the depth. Neither I know the depth, nor I will be doing the justice if I try to go a little bit deeper, because the first thing that we should do is a little bit exposure, so that we are able to get a little bit flavor what this Heart Sutra is, or what the Buddhist teaching is. So therefore, just to test the flavor, so that you get inspired to continuously pay more attention, listen to other teachers, read more books. And luckily these days we have so many interesting books in Tibetan and also in English, which was not like that at our times. When I was studying in the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, we used to borrow each and every page to study the Buddhist philosophical texts. So in that case, we are quite fortunate. So that is a kind of bit of introduction. Then with regard to this text, Shirab Nyingbo, heart of wisdom perfection or transcendental wisdom, Shirab Nyingbo, Shirab basically, so I will be now using a little bit of mixture of Tibetan and English to make it more easier to understand. Shirab wisdom, as you know. Nyingbo means essence, heart. So that wisdom that understands the way things are. Shirab, Sheba is knowing. Rab is the best of knowers. So that primarily refers to the wisdom. Wisdom is earned through experience, not just intellectual knowledge. So this word itself is very profound, very important. Because today we are living in a world which we proudly call as the age of information. But unfortunately, much of the information that we get today is junk information. And Buddha has very clearly said, do not make your head a dustbin. Your head is not a dustbin. It's not for putting junks. So therefore, information is far from enough. And as I said, unfortunately, these days, much of the information is junk information. And even in the case of knowledge, the knowledge we get these days is very superficial. It does not affect your life. The real knowledge should be something that colors your emotion, that moves your whole being, that makes you get up, go and do things for others. If you get that kind of knowledge, then it's not just information, it's something that will activate your life, that will affect your life. So that kind of knowledge, as you can clearly see, and especially the wisdom, is extremely, extremely important. So therefore, at the outset, I would like to say a few words about the whole Buddhist process of gaining knowledge. The Buddhist process of gaining knowledge is threefold. We call it Thosam Gomsum: hearing, thinking, and meditation. These three, you can now clearly see that you need to go through 3 steps: hearing, thinking, and meditation. Now, if we look carefully in our usual, ordinary process of learning, first of all, we are reluctant even to hear the teaching. We are very reluctant to take even the first step, hearing. Hearing itself is very important. As many of the text says, hearing is like a butter lamp. It's like a light that dispels the darkness of ignorance. And what you have heard is something. What you have heard is a kind of knowledge that you get, which is much better than ordinary knowledge, ordinary wealth, because that knowledge is something that cannot be stolen by thieves and cannot be robbed by robbers. So even hearing is very, very, very important. But we are reluctant to go even into that first step. Now there are some who do that hearing. Most of us go to listen to all this Lamrim teachings and so many teachings. We do hear the teachings. But then the next problem is we never do our homework. So the second process of Buddhist learning is contemplating, reflecting on the meaning that you have already heard. Because unless you digest the flavor of the teaching through personal reflection, it will not make any impact in your life. So it is important to take time. After having heard the teaching, it's important to take time to reflect personally whether it makes sense or not, whether it looks logical or not. You need to think. So it's through this thinking that you will be able to develop some conviction. His Holiness said this, and I myself thought about it. It now really looks true. Yes, this is true. So you need to develop that kind of conviction. So very few people reach that level. But that's not the end of the story. There's a third level which is called meditation, which is very, very important. And particularly in today's world, so many people talk about meditation. Meditation, this word meditation has really become a household word. And it has become a kind of romantic word. It hits the headlines of Newsweek or Times, whatever. People talk about meditation and the effects of meditation and so forth. But interestingly, at least according to my observation, much of the meditation that is done today is for relaxation, for temporary relaxation. Not beyond that. That is not the main concept of, I'm not against that. Let people relax and enjoy. I'm quite fine with that. But what is important is that the end purpose of meditation is not just forget some small temporary worries and relax. That's not the purpose of meditation. Meditation basically means, in Tibetan it's called gomba. Gomba. Gomba means khomba. Khomba means get habituated. So meditation means getting habituated. And habituated with what? Negative emotions, anger, jealousy? No. Because in that we are highly advanced meditators already. Our meditation is very strong in anger, in jealousy, in hatred. So we don't need any meditation in that field. So that clearly leaves the room for the meaning of meditation as meditating on the positive emotions. Meditation on virtuous qualities. Tsongkhapa, in his great stages of meditation, clearly says that you are controlled by your mind. Now, some of these statements that I'm saying, I'm not just saying, it is in the text, and I've thought about this. So therefore, you need to make a note of this. Remember this, and as much as possible, try to implement this in your life. You are controlled by your mind. Normally we say, I'm controlled by my husband, I'm controlled by my wife, and things like that, but that's absolutely not true. You are controlled by your mind. Nobody can control you in the true sense of the term. It is your mind which is controlling you. But we never think about this. We take it for granted that it's the task and responsibility of my mind to rule me, to control me. We take it for granted. But this is a very, very important point to think about. You are controlled by your mind. That's not a big deal. The problem is, if you are controlled by your mind, you need to see what kind of mind is controlling you. Is it a mind with wisdom? Is it a mind with loving kindness? Or is it a negative emotion, mind of negative emotion? Is it a stupid, senseless mind? So normally we'll find that we are unfortunately controlled predominantly by negative emotions. So that means you are controlled primarily by a stupid mind, a short-sighted mind, a mind which is not insightful about the way things are. Now you can find for yourself, if you are controlled by a destructive mind, where will you be? Can you hope to get happiness? Can you hope to get peace, the long-lasting peace? This is a crucial question. That's why we need to talk constantly about these Buddhist teachings. It's primarily because of this. We can always ask the question, why do we have to study Buddhism? All we need is money, dollar. If I have enough money, and many people, unfortunately, the world itself today gives the impression that if you have money, you can buy everything. And because of this, we also tend to move in that direction, thinking that money is the maker of my destiny. Now, this is a very crucial point. You need to spend time and think and reflect on this with few basic, very urgent basic questions. The basic questions are, number one, and this is in fact what I ask people when I give talks in different parts of the world. I tell people, do you want happiness? And everybody says, yes, sir, I want happiness. Then I provoke them by saying that if you want happiness, how many days you want? Then people laugh. People laugh. Because by laughing they are saying, Geshe, as far as getting happiness is concerned, it is not a question of few days and months. Because happiness is something that we want as much as possible. We want everlasting happiness. So you look at this. Your inborn reality that you want happiness, you do not want suffering. This is not something you learned from Buddhism. This is not something you learned from any other religion, Christianity or Judaism, something like that. This is the way you are, all of us. I want happiness, do not want suffering. How long you want happiness? As long as possible. You said you do not want suffering, but it doesn't really matter if you suffer a little bit. Then you say, no. Even suffering a little bit is something that I don't like. Even the bite of a mosquito I don't like. That is our nature. This being our nature, now if you are somebody who in the true sense of the term wants to take care of yourself, then you need to address these basic realities, that you want happiness and you want long-lasting happiness. Now from where do you think you will get that long-lasting happiness? Second question, very pertinent question. That was the question that was asked by the Buddha, and he found the answer. From where do you think you will get that long-lasting happiness? From wealth? From money? From name and fame? From your beloved brothers and sisters or parents? Do you think you will get that long-lasting peace and happiness from them? Honestly, you ask this question. You don't need to listen to me or even to Buddha or even to His Holiness. You need to honestly ask this question and get answer by yourself, that whether you can get that long-lasting peace and happiness. Temporary peace and happiness, yes, you can get a little bit of peace and happiness from here and there, but we are talking about this crucial point, getting long-lasting peace and happiness. And that long-lasting peace and happiness, we are not talking only after death, but even in this life, you want that reliable, unchanging peace and happiness. Can you get that unchanging, reliable peace and happiness from your relatives, from wealth, from name and fame, from money? You need to ask these questions before you do any Buddhist study. Now, not only according to the Buddhist teaching, but according to many leading thinkers and philosophers of the past and the present, they found that what is outside of you cannot be the source of your long-lasting peace and happiness. Mark this word. What is outside of you cannot be the source of long-lasting peace and happiness. Meaning, your relatives and friends are outside of you. Your name and fame, your wealth, which is outside of you. So it is wrong to think that the money that is outside of you is there to give you long-lasting peace and happiness. Your relatives that is outside of you is there to give you long-lasting peace and happiness. The beautiful flowers and trees that grow around are there to give you long-lasting peace and happiness. They have their own life. The flower does not grow to entertain you. Your relatives and friends are there not to entertain you. You might get some benefit from them, you might get love from them, but you need to realize that just as you have your living entity, similarly what is outside of you All of these things have their living entity. They have their own life. They are not there to entertain you. So to prove this point, sometimes I use a very common phrase which we regularly use when we meet somebody and then depart. Then we say, bye, take care. Nobody says, bye, I'll take care of you. As simple as that, I'm simplifying the teaching of the Buddha. And Buddha has exactly said this: self is the protector of the self, no one else can be the protector. This is what the Buddha said. And likewise he said, self is the enemy of the self, no one else can be the enemy. We are very good in pointing out because of him, because of her, because of the Chinese leaders, things like that. But the greatest damage is done by oneself. In the case of the Tibetan struggle, we have every right to say all the bad things against the Chinese wrongdoing, but that will not solve the problem. Unless we make a move, enrich ourselves economically, empower ourselves with the right wisdom, the right knowledge, empower our capacity, no one is going to come to solve our problem. They can help you a little bit. So that is the truth. That is the plain truth. Nobody can deny this, I hope. So therefore, every time you say, bye, take care, you need to think about this. This is the Buddha's teaching. Bye, take care. Even your dearest brother and sister, they will say, bye, take care. They will never say, bye, I will take care of you. You just enjoy and sleep and don't work, don't study, I'll take care of you. Nobody says that. Bye, take care. So therefore, the purpose of Buddhist teaching is to get that reliable, long-lasting peace and happiness and to remove the suffering. Now, how can we do this? We can do this by understanding the way things are, reality. Much of the problems that we get in our life is because of ignorance, but not knowing the truth. So therefore, this text, Heart Sutra, so developing that wisdom that understands the reality is the essence of all the Buddha's teachings. Hiram Nyingbo, of all the countless teachings of the Buddha, the essence is this wisdom that understands the way things are in general, and particularly that understands the shunyata, or ultimate reality. Hiram Nyingbo. As Tsongkhapa says in one of his very famous texts called Praising the Dependent Origination, Tendil Toba, where Tsongkhapa says, of all the countless teachings that you have given, that starts and ends through the teaching of dependent origination, which is the counterpart of emptiness. That things are related, things are dependent upon each other, therefore do not have independent existence. Hiram Nyingbo. In the Madhyamika Avatara text, there is a quotation by Chandrakirti where he says that all other practices like giving, observing morality, practice of patience, making effort, undertaking meditation or concentration, all these are like group of blind people. They are wonderful practices, but they are like blind people. They will not be able to find their destination. They will not be able to find their direction where they want to go. So for them to reach their destination, you need the I. There's the sixth perfection, which is called wisdom perfection. So therefore this is heart. But some of the modern Western translators and commentators, some of them call this text the Heart Ethics Sutra. Heart Ethics Sutra. That's also an interesting finding of things, because what is being explained here when we talk about the ultimate reality, it is almost contrary to what we normally had believed. And when you try to go and understand that meaning of shunyata or emptiness or the ultimate reality, you'll almost have heart attack, something like that, you see. It's not something that we think normally. So therefore, one of the Mahayana teachings, the Buddha himself has said that the Mahayana teaching is extremely difficult to understand, because people are following one line of thinking. They are following one stream of thinking, one stream of tradition. The Mahayana teaching says, no, this is the wrong direction, you need to go here. The destination, the good destination is here, the good, the place is here. But you would say, no, it doesn't look like that because all the people are going in this direction. You see. So therefore you need to do a little bit of revolutionary thinking. And in fact, that is the way in our ordinary life, that if you want to get something which people normally don't get, you need to live differently, you need to think differently. And Buddha did that, and therefore he was able to reach that lofty state of enlightenment. And because of which, how many millions of people got benefited. And even today, there are, I think, at least more than, 500 million Buddhists. And other millions who get encouraged by the teaching of the Buddha, by the wisdom of the Buddha. Just yesterday during the Republic Day, when Prime Minister Modi was addressing the crowd, he cited this quotation from the Buddha. You might have heard that, you might have seen that. When Gorbachev was trying to change the line of thinking in Russia, I remember that very well. When he came to New Delhi, there was a president banquet, and during that he wanted to bring about this change in Russia. And for doing that, he cited a quotation from the Buddha saying that you should not stick to one stupid line of thinking. When you find that this is wrong, you need to change. So this is how the Buddha had given the wisdom insight to many great thinkers. So therefore, we should write at the outset. Now, one thing that I would like to clarify here is I'm not here playing the role of a Lama. I'm not your Lama. I make it very clear. Okay, you are not my student, so you don't have to think like that. I'm simply giving a talk, giving a lecture. Okay, that's what is, I think, it is important in today's time. Otherwise, people get confused. Oh, I have heard the teaching from him, so he is my teacher. And then after some time you start fighting, Yeah, that's not good. So use our common sense. Okay, if you get some benefit, okay. Even somebody gives you a cup of tea, it's your duty to say thank you, So you get some benefit, then in your mind think, oh, thank you, Geshe, that I deserve. But apart from that, I didn't need anything. So I'm not here to do a campaign of becoming a great Lama or things like that. I'm simply doing my duty, responsibility, especially to share this a little bit of knowledge to the younger Tibetan generation, which I think is really, really important. Really, really important. Because if you have the right culture, if you have the internal impetus through culture, through religion, then you get that spirit, that boldness in doing something for the benefit of other suffering sentient beings, be it Tibetan or non-Tibetan, whoever. You will get that spirit. If you don't have that knowledge, then you talk about compassion. What is compassion? Compassion is a mind which says how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. There's the definition. I had memorized it. It's very easy to say. But unless I practice it, make it a part of my life, integrate it in my life, it will not make me move and go and do things for others, as I said earlier. So as I said earlier, knowledge is not something that you should peg in the corner of your mind. It is something that through hearing, as I said, something hearing and thinking and meditation, then it colors your emotion. It moves your whole being. It makes you get up, go and do things for others. So that's the purpose of this wisdom. So here we are lucky. We should really consider lucky that we got this opportunity to listen this text, study this text, the essence of the teaching of Buddha, which is called Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard. Now, actually in the English, some of the lines are not there in the beginning, because in the Tibetan we have Jagarkedu Bhangavati Paranjaparamita Hirdaya Pyokedu Chomdendema Jagarkedu Bhangavati Jagarkedu in the Indian language. In the Indian language, Bhagavati Paranjaparamita Hirdaya, you have only this line, and then the rest are in Tibetan. Now when the Tibetan translators translated the text is from Sanskrit to Tibetan, then they always put few lines of Sanskrit in the very beginning. Jagarkedu, Bhangavati, Panchaparamita, Hridaya, which we have here. So similarly like that, in all the texts that has been translated, you will find these few lines in Sanskrit. This is to show the authenticity of the teaching. Tibetan translators wanted to show that this is an authentic text translated from original, reliable Sanskrit. It is not something that I have, without any knowledge, I have improvised. It's not like that, number one. Number two, this is also to help you remember the kindness of those great translators. If this has been not translated into Tibetan, today will not be able to understand it. So that's the meaning. Jagar Kedu in the Indian language, Bhagavati, Jagar. Jagar actually the word comes from the word Jakar, because most of the Indians, they wear white clothes, so they call it Jakar. In India, in China, mostly wear black clothes, so Janak, Jakar Janak, Jagar Kedu. Bhagavati, 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 Chomden Dema. In the Tibetan, it's called Chomden Dema. So this Heart Sutra itself is called Chomden Dema. Okay? You use this Ma not because there is a female or a lady here, but you use this Ma because the wisdom realizing emptiness is like the mother. And the skillful methods like development of compassion and bodhicitta, these are like father. Okay? Chomden Dema. Chomden Dema. Chomden Dema. Chom. Chom means to destroy. In short, somebody who has destroyed, or the wisdom perfection itself is something that will help you destroy all the afflictive emotions, negative emotions. Chomba. And it will help you also to get the necessary qualifications. Demba. To help you get or possess all the positive qualities. Chomba, Dema, Chomden Dema. Okay? So, according to one sutra, it says, the mother is the wisdom, and father is the skillful means, like loving kindness, compassion, so forth. And all the other virtuous qualities, they are the servant. They are the servant. So two of these most important practices like bodhicitta and the wisdom understanding emptiness, they are the most important practice in the Mahayana tradition. Okay? Shirabji Paruduchi Nyingbo, Bhangavati, Paramita, Hridaya. Hridaya means heart or essence. Paramita, Shirabji Paruduchimba. Now, Shirabji Paruduchimba, the wisdom gone beyond, refers to two things. One, it refers to the wisdom that will help you go beyond the ordinary existence. That means that will help you to achieve enlightenment. It could also refer to the resultant state, that is the wisdom gone beyond of the Buddha, where the Buddha's wisdom is really gone beyond everything. It has actualized the resultant state. So it could refer both to the causal factor and also to the fruit. Now this wisdom perfection is called the essence, the heart, because as I have already explained, what we want is happiness and what we do not want is suffering. In the Buddhist practice, the real happiness can be achieved if you transcend all the afflictive emotions with their seed. Tharvathoba, when you get liberated, when you actualize that state of cessation of all the afflictive emotions. Now, in order to achieve that state of liberation or cessation of negative emotions, there are many causal factors, but the most important factor is the wisdom understanding emptiness. Whether you follow the Sarvakayana and the Patigha Buddhayana path or the Bodhisattvayana path, the wisdom understanding emptiness is the key, the main antidote in removing ignorance. So therefore this wisdom perfection is called the essence of the teaching of the Buddha from that point of the view. Okay? So before I forget, I wanted to give an example which I forgot about these three processes of hearing, thinking and meditation. Why these three are important. I'll give you an example so that you can practice it later on. If you are thirsty if you are thirsty and looking for water, is it important for you to hear from somebody where water is available? Is it important? Is it important to hear where water is available? Yes. So hearing is important like that. If you are thirsty, looking for water, it is important to hear from somebody where water is available. So that's hearing is important. When somebody tells you, when you ask this question where water is available, and then somebody answers by saying water is available 2 kilometers from here. That's a wonderful start. But is it enough? Will that quench your thirst? Will you say, thank you, I heard about where water is available. Now my thirst is gone. Will you say something like that? No. So therefore I'm saying just hearing is not enough. So you need the second step, which is, now you know water is available 2 kilometers from here, so you need to walk 2 kilometers from here. So there's like thinking. It's not enough to have heard the teaching, but you need to think. You walk 2 kilometers, you reach near the water. Finally you are near the water. Will you say, I walked 2 kilometers, finally I can see the water. Thank you very much. Now my thirst is gone. Will you say that? No. You made a lot of progress, but still, unless you bend down, use your hand or your cups or whatever, unless you drink the water, your thirst will not be quenched. So therefore, meditation means you need to make those good, positive emotions habituated, make them as a part of your life. For example, if we are talking about compassion, as I said earlier, compassion is a mind which says how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. Okay, you know the definition, which is good. Then you also know how many different types of compassion there are. There are 3-4 types of compassion are there. You count it on your fingers. That's wonderful. You know, you have that knowledge. But the next key and important question is, this thing called compassion is a wonderful emotion. But do I have it? Do I have it? That's the difficult part. You don't have it. So how can I have it? Now you need to meditate. Now you to make your mind habituated with this practice of compassion regularly, so that you come closer and closer to this quality, and very soon you will be able to have that, develop that compassion. And once you develop that compassion, it will become an internal impetus which will make you a responsible person. Whoever is suffering, you will be able to, without hesitation, extend your help and assistance. Like mother seeing her beloved little child. If a mother has a little beloved child, the mother's watchful eye is always after that child. Whenever the child is facing slight problem, slight difficulty, the mother is ready there. She will be ready even to jump into a pit of fire to save that little child, because she has that compassion. Not necessarily the purest form of compassion, but quite good compassion. So if you have that, you are ever ready. When you don't have that, like for example in our government work also, like when we don't have that genuine sense of responsibility for the well-being of Tibetans, or fulfilling His Holiness wish, whatever it is, when you don't have that, then you will do, when your bosses tell you do this, you will do it. After that, you don't make a move. That's what we see all the time, you see. When it's something that you need to do in your own home, nobody has to ask you, do this, do that. You will do, you will think, where do I have to go, what I have to buy, what I don't have to do. You will do, but we don't do this for others, you see. So this needs training, knowledge, realization. How through such a way of life one can have that reliable peace and happiness, not only to oneself but for many other people. Okay? So therefore, hearing, thinking and meditation, all these three are very, very important. And especially these days, like including myself, of course, it's easier to talk, but practice is very difficult. I'll tell you one of my experience. when I was translator, before I was translator to His Holiness, when I was just a student in the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, I used to go to listen to His Holiness teachings. During the teaching, I get so inspired. I think, oh, I must do something, you know. Highly inspired. But that inspiration, how long does it last? It lasts just up to the threshold of the temple. This is my experience. I'm sure you have that experience. As soon as I cross the threshold of the temple and mix with the crowd says, welcome back home. You know, welcome back home. The same, familiar world, you do the same stupid thing. That's our experience, you see. That's our experience. So we need to spend a little bit of time, especially for the younger generation or whoever. We need to spend at least 5-10 minutes in the morning doing a little bit of meditation. Then you'll get some taste. You'll get some taste of the flavor of the peace. Because why this is so? This is so because your mind, when you talk about the mind, it is a non-physical entity. It has no limitation. Sky is the limit. As soon as you reflect and go inside the mind, it's so interesting. As soon as you go inside and reflect within your mind, the mind mixes with the space. There is so much space, infiniteness. You will not feel suffocating. As I said, it's liberating, you see. Whereas when we just chase an object of desire, of attachment, of anger, even when we get something that we are looking and chasing after that what you will find is suffocation. Because your mind is then tied to that object. Buddha did not teach tying your mind to an object. Buddha did not teach entangling your mind with an object. He taught how to get freedom, you see. That's the way things are. So my explaining things will not do much job, but what you need to do is spend a little bit of time, whenever you have, especially in the morning, 5-10 minutes meditation. Then see. Then you will, like I used to have one friend, a Western nun. He was in Dharamsala for a long time. So one day she came to me and said, Geshe, I've been here in Dharamsala for many years. I'm not making any progress. What should I do? I said, go back to your home. And at that time, she must have felt that, Geshe is very blunt, he's not helping me. So obviously, not because I said she should go home, but she was going home, so she went home. And after some time, she came back and came to see me and said, Geshe, thank you very much. Then I said, for what? When I came to see you and asked this question, you said, go back to your home. Now I realize. Then I said, what did you realize? She said, Geshe, I can now see my spiritual progress. When you relate with other people, then you will see how stupid so many people are wasting their life. You see? Really, honestly, that's important. You need to compare, you see. Otherwise you will think it's not helping me, you see. Because we have this tendency of measuring things in material terms. The spiritual progress is not a material progress. In terms of material success, okay, you work for 1 month, then after that you get your salary, you see, something solid, Not being able to get something like that, we think that I'm not getting anything. But believe me, on a day when you really suffer, which we are all going to suffer, death will be there, suffering will be there, sickness will be there, separations will be there, what not, so many things are there. Bound to come. There's no escape from that. When you face these turbulences of life, difficulties of life, if you have this right mental outlook, you will be able to deal with those things with calmness of mind. Therefore, one of the Buddhist teachers, he said, when he heard about this word suffering, he said, what? What is suffering? What is suffering? I don't know suffering. It's your mind make up. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's your mind make up. See? It's your mind make up. If you develop a positive mental outlook, suffering will not be there. This is not just a joke. It is the way things are. It's not only the Buddhist teaching, but sorry. I'll tell you one thing, then a few questions, and then we stop. It's not the Buddha, but there are many thinkers. For example, I'll tell you one writer who wrote in one of his books, he said that if you are somebody who is thinking that you are suffering from 100% suffering, 100% suffering, okay? If you're somebody who is thinking that I'm overwhelmed by 100% suffering, then if you sit down and think carefully, out of this so-called 100% suffering which you thought you are afflicted with, 70% of that suffering is not even suffering. It's your mind make up. Your mind has made it 70%. So if you change your thinking a little bit, 70% of suffering will go like this. This is true. This is not a joke. 70% of your suffering can be done away with that. Now how much left? 30% of suffering. Out of the 30% suffering, the rest, say 20% of suffering, is really suffering, but changeable suffering. So instead of sitting there and complaining, feeling helplessness, if you try to change it, if you attempt to change it, you can change it. So 20 suffering also gone. So how much left? 10%. 10% of remaining suffering are not only suffering, but very adamant suffering about which you can do nothing. So what should you do? What should you do? You need to say, go hell with you. I have so many other things to do. You see, the problem is when we have a problem which we are unable to solve, we have this tendency of continuously thinking about it, which is not going to do any good to us, which will, of course, create constant problems and difficulties. So, for example, if I have lost my left hand, but my right hand is intact, is it better that I keep on thinking about this missing hand or the hand that I have? Of course, it's better to think about this hand. By thinking that I have lost one hand, but there are many who have lost both of the hands. And therefore I'm lucky, I have at least the right hand, which is the more powerful hand. So I will use this one. Your life will be happy and you will be able to do many things. I've seen this myself when I visited this lepers colony in Madras. People who have lost all their fingers of the hand, of the legs, but they're full of enthusiasm. They're playing, they're making chairs and so many things, you see. So you can do. So that's the thing. That's the thing. So therefore, in our life, we should always be, full of kind of positive mental outlook, happiness, or appreciating what we have already. I said this when I was giving a talk in Russia. I said, you should be happy that you have such a wonderful thing with you. I said, Geshe, what do we have? Immediately people measure in terms of their material possession. What do I have? I'm a poor lady, I'm a poor man. What do I have? I have nothing. Then I tell them, what? You have nothing? What about these 2 eyes? Intact. 2 hands intact. Once you realize that I have 2 eyes intact, 2 hands intact, 2 legs intact, and compare it with those who don't have those things, you'll really be able to fill with joy, thinking that, I did not think about this until now. Now it is important that I use this. When I have these 2 eyes intact, 2 hands intact, 2 legs intact, I must use all this in the best possible way and should not be sitting there as if I'm blind or if I don't have the legs and hands, you see. So you can see. So your thinking, your process of thinking can really completely transform, change your life. So therefore, Shantideva in his famous text, Bodhisattva Way of Life, he says, if it is something you can change, do not worry, because you can change. If it is something you cannot change, no use worrying, because by worrying you can't change it. So he's saying, don't waste your time for thinking about useless things, you see. In the case of our struggle against the Chinese wrongdoing also, we can keep on thinking all the bad things, say all the bad things against the Chinese leaders, But that will make our life miserable, you see. But that's not going to do any harm to them. But instead of that, as he always suggests, if we develop love and compassion and empower ourselves with the right knowledge and reach our economical status and things like that, we will be able to achieve what we want to achieve. So that's why you can see these teachings are not only for achieving liberation and enlightenment. Some people might think that, if there is an enlightenment nirvana, then it may be useful, but otherwise it's not useful. Many people might think like that, you see. But it's not like that. So wisdom basically means to develop that awareness. Awareness. In our daily life, you should remain alert and aware and watchful. Whatever is experiencing at your vicinity, environment, you should always have this cautioning mind. If you look at this, the epithet of the word Buddha, the fully awakened one. Buddha is somebody who is fully awake what is happening in this world, which also implies that we are sleeping. Of course, you will say that I'm not sleeping, I went to the office, but still you are sleeping, you see. You are sleeping in ignorance, you see. We are not making much progress in our life, not achieving much because we are kind of sleeping. So therefore, the wisdom is really the one that will wake you up, that will teach you the art of reasoning, that will teach you the art of remaining alert in everything. And once you remain alert and aware what is happening in your daily life, then the whole nature is an open book. Your knowledge will grow like this. Your wisdom will grow like this. If you don't maintain that awareness and alertness, no amount of teaching and going to the classes will help you because you yourself is not moving. So therefore, as I said earlier, we should consider ourselves lucky and fortunate to be able to listen to this text. And this is not a terribly long text, so don't worry about finishing the text. We'll be able to finish it. More importantly, after having heard this sutra, I will strongly implore and urge you to make sure that you get a nice copy of Heart Sutra, number one. Because the purpose of this kind of discourse is not to finish everything in this hall. We need to do some homework. So that is, you need to make a promise to keep a Heart Sutra text in your home. If possible, a nice small book or a scripture, keep that. Because this is heart, as I said, heart of all the wisdom perfections. Bum, Niti, Getung, Mangbo Yorba. This is the heart of all this. And it is not terribly long. Okay? So there are some few homework that we need to do, otherwise we are not going to make any progress. So I stop here.